Hello everyone, this is Tyler again. I wanted to go over my modifications to my Tronxy X5S. Show kind of how that's come along. I have gone to linear rails along the X and the Y. There's the Y axis, there's the X axis, and over to the Y. I have files for both H and C. Basically, these are C right here. Basically, 15 by 20 versus 20 by 20. Not really much of a difference as far as performance, especially with this kind of weight. Whichever you buy, you will have the parts for. One thing I have noticed is I realize if you do get the C, which is the 15 by 20 hole pattern, this fan duct, I do not have a version for that. So either go with all H's, you'll be fine, or two C's and H, or if you aren't going to use my fan duct design to begin with, that's fine. It's kind of hard to see through the belts. I'll try and push them down here. See, that's a regular stock fan that comes with it. If you have the older versions, you will have to get a 40 by 40 by 10 blower fan. See, just like that. Does have a 360 mount, or 360 nozzle for the air. This panel back here, the white part you can see, that is made out of aluminum on mine. I do have both a DXF and a STL file for it in the Thingiverse. That's just to make it easier for you guys. That way you don't have to cut it out if you want to, or you could use it as a template. I really recommend using it as aluminum or steel, even if you can. Steel would be a little hard to cut, but aluminum is just shiny wood, as I've heard. It uses these these flange bearings on the belt. That way you got some retaining. One thing to note is back here I don't have them. You'll notice the little powder here. That is powderized belts, because these do grind up your belts, depending on the belt location. And it was only this length here. You can even tell, look at that, that is chewed up. And what it had to do with was the angle of this belt. So you'd have this along here and this along here. This angle would grind away on the belt because it would force the belt up. I couldn't quite figure out why. I have a feeling this bolt here was leaning out and it was forcing the belt up, because it would actually have to tighten itself to move down, and it just, yeah. So I might have to look into something else for this. Ideally, I'd have an idler pulley. They don't really make an idler pulley I like, because a lot of the ones you see online, you tighten them up and they actually bind, so you can't actually get a good tension on them. Unless I actually had a bit that came over and supported that, but I don't really like that design. It makes it complicated to print. These parts are very easy to print. These are actually two halves bolted together with M3 by 10 screws, and there's nuts in there embedded, so you don't have to get in there with a tool that would be really hard to fit. Everything's metric originally, so I kept it metric. Another thing to note is I changed this. This was just so I didn't have to undo the coupler on the connector, sorry, on the motor cable, which you will have to get a longer one. This is a 2 meter long cable and it's plenty long. But that connector will not fit through the 10 by 10. So this is a 10 by 20 cable chain. They aren't too expensive. Of course, as you could probably tell here, the dual drive setup. This is a clone of the Bondtech. I wasn't sure I was going to go with it, and I didn't want to spend the whole money on a real Bondtech until I was certain. So far, it's treated me well, though gotta admit that the new E3D options are looking kind of tempting, but for now that'll work. The end stops are still in the lock position, or the stock positions. This bracket is actually stock, though I'm pretty sure I have included a custom bracket that allows you to bring the head of the 3D printer closer, though there's no real point. As long as you have a stock frame, it'll overhang plenty. This is in its custom 0, or the stock 0 position, and it's probably 3 millimeters, 5 millimeters ahead of the bed, and probably 5 or 6 off to the one side. So there's really no loss of build space with this design. I see a lot of people, their designs, you can only utilize 300 by 300. Mine, you can use the full amount. I have these. I'm not a huge fan of these giant wheels. They're a little too big. But they're on here for now. Stock springs. This bracket is a bit of C-channel that you can pick up at your hardware store. I suggest buying it from a hardware store. I'm in America, so we have our inch units, and this is 3/8 by 3/8. I guess a option would be maybe 8 millimeters by 8 millimeters or 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters. Both would work. This one is just a straight channel cut and beveled, just so I don't have anything to cut myself on here. Just a little rounding with a file. Holes are 300 millimeters by 300 millimeter spacing. I think, no, actually I'm wrong. It's actually 320 by 320. So there's a 5 millimeter spacing from 0. So 320 and then 320 on the hole across from there. This is the same one here. This is exactly the same as this. This next one here has a cutout to get around the electronics. I just didn't want to risk anything shorting out. That's why it's wrapped in tape there. And what that keeps is the bed doesn't sag at all. So you get better contact between the glass plate. You don't really have to worry about the glass plate really flexing or doing anything as long as it's not under any stress. These clips will keep it bent a little bit if everything's not true. So you have to be careful of that. Over to this side, I have a support bracket. I don't think that's released on Thingiverse. That's a design on my own. It's not perfect yet. That's probably why it's not out. Also why it's not in the beautiful real orange that I get. And I use 3D Solutech filaments. I get that on Amazon. That's like really beautifully prints, and it is not that expensive. And this is, the quality I got even before my 3D. I modified the 3D printer to have linear rails. Now it's like glass. What's an example? This box is part of something I'm working on, and You can tell it's not perfect, but dang, that is good. And I've seen prints off of a Ultimaker. They don't look that good. Sorry, Ultimaker, just being honest. Gosh, what else? I have my power supply over here. That was also printed after the modifications, and there's actually more artifacting from the lack of resolution on the X and Y than there is along the Z as far as Z banding from wobble. So that's pretty awesome. This has up top here is a 25 volt to run the bed, and then below is a 12 volt. Not a perfect solution, but it's what I'm running for now because I'm still running the stock controller board. So, which is pretty cool at this point on what I've been able to achieve with stock electronics, though with the artifacts on this part here, that whole kind of even rippling across the surface there, it's probably telling me I'm probably reaching the very max of what you can get out of this controller board. I have added corners for rigidity. These aluminum corners are cheap, and they just use M4 or M5 hardware. I wouldn't go with M3. I actually had to use a washer for M4. So if you do feel like buying, if you're just buying the hardware for this, buy M5. It's a little large because these are M5s right here, but it works out great. Modifications to the back end here. You'll see this is the motor mounts. They're custom. They space the motors out a little further to accommodate these bearings. And it just so happens these bearings have the same diameter as the bearings that come stock, so it didn't disrupt them that I had to go back to these, but they won't work here. Just the clearances aren't available around this post here. That's a pretty tight fit, as you might be able to tell, and it just won't work, but it works on that lower part for now. It's not a complete design, but I'm making progress. I have an additional version coming up. Just a patch of a few issues that I wanted to cover. This back piece here, you can 3D print. I add captured nuts like I have pretty much throughout the rest of the design, like over here where the nuts are actually embedded. Come on, focus. You know, there's a nut in there. You can't really see it very well. There's nuts captured in here, 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 you know, all over. Just makes it so much easier. I even want to do a plate that goes here, even if you're doing it out of aluminum. That way you can not have to worry about it flopping around. This kind of flops around a little bit much, in my opinion. That heavier drag chain or cable chain. So if you're going off of my designs on Thingiverse, I hope this is a little bit helpful. Helps you kind of get some guidance on, you know, putting this thing together and what it all takes. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you want to see more. Check out the Thingiverse, like it on Thingiverse. Let me know what you think, either in the comments on YouTube or in Thingiverse, and I will take your input in consideration as I develop the future versions of this. Thank you very much, and have a great day.